Hey there, this is Natalie, and this is part 8 of my reading of the Mushoku Tensei prequel, Old Dragon's Tale. This will cover chapters 15 and 16. As always, please consider subscribing if you like this kind of content. There are 23 chapters in total, and I'll be continuing to release 2 chapters per video until the final part, which will have the last 3 chapters. And with that out of the way, let's get straight back into Old Dragon's Tale. Chapter 15, Funeral. Dragon God Sama let out a voiceless sound when he saw Lunaria Sama's remains. His eyes wide, mouth agape, looking toward the room in disbelief. I too. I couldn't believe what I witnessed either. Lunaria Sama is dead, in a pool of her own blood. The one who accepted me as her own, dead. Who? Why? I don't understand. She didn't hold grudges with anyone. Everyone in Dragon World loved her dearly. No one would think to murder her. Yet I could hear the baby wailing nearby, a howling cry, the voice of losing someone irreplaceable. The son of Dragon God is crying. It brought me back to reality. I saw Dragon God Sama, an emotion I've never seen before on his face, a voice never before heard out of him. Anger, pain, resentment, wearing a torrent of emotions. Confusion, anxiety, shock, voicing a whirlwind of emotions. I've never seen Dragon God Sama so emotional. He crouched down and held Lunaria Sama in his right hand and his child in his left. Lunaria Sama probably did not die a quick death. There were scratches everywhere on her body. There was a potentially fatal wound on her neck, 3 on her chest, 2 on her abdomen, and 8 on her back. Truly terrible. The murderer went way overboard from what was necessary to kill her. Even though Lunaria Sama was human, as a scion of human god, she was full of kindness and compassion, completely unattached to conflict. Yet such a gentle creature resisted so vigorously. After so many fatal injuries, she still stood unyielding to the enemy. Why? It was obvious. She curled up like a turtle to protect someone. To protect the son of Dragon God Sama, her son. Lunaria Sama resisted the attacker and was murdered for it, but she did protect him, despite the numerous scars on her back as proof the child yet lived. After killing Lunaria Sama, the murderer probably ran. Why? The Dragon God muttered blankly, speaking to himself as he reassessed the situation. Maybe he thought the same as I. The identity of Lunaria Sama's murderer. Why? Dragon God's roar trembled the whole house. The whole city shaked. Even the very mountain quaked. Who killed her? The murderous intent permeated the whole dragon world. All living things trembled in horror, quivering in the wrath of God. From the smallest lizard to the flying dragons to the dragon race ourselves, we all shook in horror. I was no exception. My whole body trembled and sunk in place. I understood that Dragon God Sama would not hurt me. I just couldn't control my unconscious fear. A ray of light shined from the body of Dragon God Sama, what I perceived as light, but it was a fist. A fist carrying Dragon God's unspeakable rage passed by me. When I turned around, there was a huge hole in the walls. Through it, the city of Chaos was visible continuously. A great space at the back of the cityscape became an open cavern. With a single blow, Dragon God Sama blew off a solid chunk of Dragon's Roll Mountain. It was embarrassing to say this, but I leaked a little. At that moment, I could have been erased like those stones. It wouldn't be strange for Dragon God Sama to leap out of the house to unleash his fury. But that did not happen. Because there was one person who did not fear Dragon God's wrath. His child. After Dragon God Sama picked him up by the left hand, he was no longer sobbing. Although still snorting through his nose, he raised his head to look towards Dragon God Sama, as if relieved that he'd arrived. Dragon God Sama saw the child and calmed down slightly. He understood that he still had something to protect. Laplace, Dragon God Sama called my name. Yes, I'm here. Assemble the 5 dragon generals. Find the murderer. Yes. I didn't ask for a plan for the search. I didn't suggest discovering the motive first. Dragon God was angry, a rage I'd never seen before, so the 5 dragon generals were ordered to convene and hunt the criminal, and we obeyed. The dragon generals gathered immediately. It's only natural following a direct order from Dragon God Summer. I rushed to each of the 5 dragon generals to convey the order and collect them. They'll rush to every command of Dragon God Summer, no matter what. That's the 5 dragon generals. Moreover, with Lunaria Summer's murder, it would be odd if the 5 dragon generals didn't. What? Lunaria Summer was murdered? When I reported the circumstance to the 5 dragon generals, everyone had a painful look. No one in Dragon World hates Lunaria Summer. Considering Dragon God Summer's loss, everyone suffered for him. Lunaria Summer's body had countless wounds. This suspect is obviously a person. I made my report. Dragon God Summer remained mute after the 5 dragon generals assembled. He seemed to have calmed down slightly from before, but slowly a terrifying murderous intent oozed out from his corner of the room. After my report, Dragon God Summer finally spoke. "Find the criminal and drag them before me." Every one of the dragon generals trembled at that voice. Even I was terrified. The wrath of Dragon God Summer. I never saw him like this before. Even when Crystal, one of the 5 dragon generals, died, he wasn't this enraged. "We obey." At once the 5 dragon generals answered, and their looks transformed. If it's a command from Dragon God Summer, we'd descend to the depth of hell. The wrath of Dragon God Summer is also our wrath. We're all determined to find Lunaria's murderer. "Go." Yes. At the command of Dragon God Summer, the 5 dragon generals scattered all over the dragon world, each looking for the culprit in their own way. I too want to find them in my own way. Laplace, stay. However, I was prevented by Dragon God Summer. It was a surprise. After all, I have a magic eye. The ability to trace the criminal from the clues they left behind. These traces do not disappear immediately, but do dissipate over time. No one should have been more qualified than I was. I also had the track record of catching the criminal who killed Crystal. Why? I also have Lunaria Summer's death, but I had a more important role. Let's mourn for Lunaria. At that time, I finally understood that the Dragon God was not just angry. He was sad. If you think about it, it's a matter of course. To be honest, I knew very little about Dragon God Summer's feelings. I didn't realize how much he loved her. Dragon God Summer was always a bit distant, as if he's always keeping a reasonable distance with Lunaria Summer, but that wasn't the case. Dragon God Summer truly loved Lunaria. He just had a different way to show it. Understood. To me, who gave the utmost salute, Dragon God Summer quietly said, "Thanks." Funerals at Dragon World were a special affair. The closest member of the family was responsible for carrying the dead. This person was typically the deceased spouse, siblings, parents, or for those without immediate family, friends, colleagues, or even their immediate superiors. The dead was picked up from where they lie and carried to the centre of town. Every town had an altar at its centre. It's an altar to pray for the safe rebirth of the recently dead. Also where other loved ones can make their eulogy. I don't remember the details, but the message was, "May you be born under Dragon God Summer again in your next life." After the eulogies were raised, the dead were brought to the edge of town. Circle around the perimeter once in a clockwise direction. Dragon God Summer was holding Lunaria Summer while I carried the son of Dragon God Summer. With great care we completed the ceremony and circled the city. Other dragon race stretched open their palms and crossed their hearts when they saw who was carrying the dead. The utmost salute of the dragon race. We raise a fist to the living, but not to the dead. That was the way of the dragon race. In a normal situation, you only salute when you witness the body, but all of the city's denizens came to attend Lunaria Summer's funeral, assembling in its inner perimeter. Everyone loved Lunaria Summer dearly. They all wished to witness her one last time. After circling once, we arrived at a small round building, a building made of stone. On its walls engraved many names. Several stone tablets stood as well, also engraved with names. Names of those that passed in the dragon world. Dragon God Sama carried Lunaria Sama into the building, and a person quickly went over. Tattered wings and scattered scales. It's an old man. Dragon race have a long lifespan, but we're not immortal. We all die eventually. He looked pained when he recognized Lunaria Sama. How could Lunaria Sama have died? What tragedy, he muttered, teary, as he carried her name onto a stone tablet with a dragon bone chisel. Names were typically engraved into the walls in order, but special people like Lunaria Sama were carved into stone tablets instead. Of course, crystal was also carved onto a stone tablet. This was a graveyard, a dragon race graveyard, a facility to remember the dead. When the old man received Lunaria Sama from Dragon God Sama, he went to the back of the building. I walk behind him with Dragon God Sama. There was a dark hole there. The hole is so deep that it seems to continue to another world, but of course it doesn't lead into another world. This hole leads to the summit of Dragon's Roar Mountain, that is, to the sky. Pray for those who have become souls a good fortune in the afterlife, and for them to return to these mountains and come under the guidance and blessings of Dragon God Sama. The old man chanted a long eulogy. I don't remember the wording in detail, but it was longer than those chanted back in the city. After finishing the chant, the old man gently placed Lunaria Sama's remains by the hole. Usually it was dropped into the hole like that, and the funeral was over. The hole leads to the sky, and if you jump out of the hole, you will be eaten by a giant black snake, a red dragon, a blue dragon, or worse. Dragon race has a long lifespan, but we could still die of old age outside of battle. Once upon a time, that was considered disgraceful. It was thought as an honour to fight and die for Dragon God. But Dragon God Sama did not think so. He believes all dragon race are equal under him. That's why he came up with this funeral method. He gave those who died of old age or illness the same as a warrior's death. And like a great warrior, their names are engraved. They lived and died for the dragon race. However, such funeral rites were not suitable for Lunaria Sama. Therefore, a funeral rite of the human race would be held after this. Dragon God Sama picked up Lunaria and returned to the mansion. There, in the garden beside the mansion, he laid the corpse of Lunaria. Then, with a pained look, Dragon God Sama raised a flame from his hand and wrapped Lunaria Sama with its blaze. Lunaria Sama's remains were burned and in an instant turned into pure white bones and ashes. Together with the Dragon God, we buried the bones and ashes into the ground and planted a small sapling above it. This is the funeral of the human race. Is it different now? But at that time, that was the funeral rite of the human race that passed to the dragon world. Dead bodies of living things can turn into monsters where they lie. Therefore, it must be burned and buried, with a sapling planted above. The sapling will grow with the power of the dead. While the tree lives, the living would never forget the dead. This was how the human race, whose lifespan was shorter than trees, mourn their dead. I was introduced to Lunaria by Human God. After we buried Lunaria Sama, Dragon God Sama shared how they met with me. I just silently listened to the words of Dragon God Sama. At first it was an experiment. Is it possible to have children with other races? And if so, what power will they have? An experiment with consequences for all the peoples of the world. Those experiments have been carried out many times, but one day Human God said, what would happen if the gods have children together? Thus, Human God brought Lunaria for this, as she was Human God's daughter, and all of the other gods are male and could not have children. I did not love Lunaria, but she did her best for Dragon World. She used her power as a daughter of God to enrich the Dragon World. To me, all the dragon race are like children. All the dragon race are important. I wanted each and every one of them to be happy. When Lunaria gave me a child, I finally realized that she seemed more special than the dragon race. I didn't realize it, but by the time I noticed it, I had come to love Lunaria. Dragon God said with a nostalgic face. Lunaria Sama never changed, a person full of grace. Even Dragon God Sama came to love her. Laplace. Yes, I can't forgive the one who killed Lunaria. I'm still trembling with unprecedented rage. Yes, even if we turn the other worlds into enemies, will you follow me? It goes without saying, everyone, not just me, will follow Dragon God Sama until the end, even to our own destruction. Dragon God Sama stood up in silence. His eyes were sharp and his body radiating murderous intent. There was no sadness anymore. I was fearful. Even though I knew that murderous intent wasn't aimed at myself, no living thing would not find it terrifying. Our revenge, it has begun. Master! When he came to, Rostalina was standing in front of Laplace, studying Laplace with a worried look. What's wrong? Rostalina, the story isn't over, but have you heard enough for today? Oh no, I wish to continue, but Laplace-sama, perhaps you should have a night's rest first. Why do you think so? Because... Rostalina took out a handkerchief from her pocket and wiped Laplace's face. It whisked some stuff running down his cheek and darkened. Yes, at some point Laplace had begun to cry. Tears pouring out of his face, sobbing through his words. His speech was becoming so muddled, by the end of the story it was hard to make out his words. Oh, I'm sorry. When I remember that time, it became like this. Laplace loved Lunaria-sama, didn't he? Well, she was my mother. Even though we're not connected by blood, she stood by my side. She was always there when I returned home, smiling so gently, listening to my stories. A goddess of compassion. To be so cruelly murdered. That experience on that horrible day. Even now. Laplace cried. With a hand covering his eyes, he bent down, his shoulders shivering, and with a slight sob he cried. Rostalina quietly watched as a man twice her size sobbed in front of her. She was troubled, because this was the first time she saw Laplace cry. But after a while, she ran to the kitchen, drew a glass of water, and returned. Slowly, she stroked his back and offered him the glass. Thank you, Rostalina. Now that I thought about it, you're always there to comfort me. I was tired of an empty home and happy to have someone to welcome. No, it's okay, Master, I don't need you to thank me, and I'm grateful that I could be of help. Well, let's count on each other. Laplace said so and straightened up in his chair. His eyes were red and engorged, but his tears had stopped. A clear voice came out of his mouth, no more muddled by sobbing. Let's continue the story. I'm sorry, but I may shed tears several times from here as well. Yes, I'll have some water ready. You sure are considerate. Next. Laplace looked into the void again, remembering the past he did not wish to recall. Chapter 16. The Anger of Dragon God. The search for the criminal has begun. For me, every big incident always started with a search for a criminal. Well, I say that, but it's still only the second time. Then, the existence who sneaked into the dragon world, passing through the eyes of the dragon tribe, and went to the dragon god's mansion, and on top of that tried to kill Lunaria and eventually the sun. Is he going to be hard to find? It certainly is easier than finding a demon in the whole of Dragon World. After all, the ones who could do this are very few in number. Unlike Crystal's case, it was a daytime incident and happened in the town. Besides, I also have the power of the demon eye. There's no reason for me not to be able to collect evidence. Just like that, evidence was gathered in no time. Easily it's gathered. It's not befitting for a case where the person that could be called the most precious person in Dragon World is killed. It was so easy that it was strange that no trace was left on the scene. It seemed to be hidden to some extent, but it was a sloppy hiding method that could be found immediately if you searched for it intentionally. It's too easy that I don't even need to use my demon eye. Me too, I should have had some doubts about that. Unfortunately, people don't wonder much when things are going well. That time, I thought it was natural for it to work because I acted according to the correct procedure. By collecting evidence, the suspects were narrowed down. But when I narrowed it down, I was stunned. I reviewed the evidence again and confirmed it many times, but no matter how much I looked at it, the list of suspects didn't change. The meeting was held almost immediately after the information was gathered and the suspects were identified. Are these the suspects? We, the 5 dragon generals, gathered in the meeting room where the dragon god was waiting and presented the contents of each investigation. All of the 5 dragon generals had the same suspects on the list. Yes, everyone came to the same conclusion as I did. The list contained the names of 4 people: Pedoria Dordia, Nartakil, Npadon Ballad, Kirisis Calicis. The first 3 are probably unfamiliar names to you. However, I think with the name of the last person, you somehow got the idea. Yes, they're inhabitants of another world. At the same time, they were the engineers I'd spent many years adjusting and inviting into the dragon world. They'd gathered in a building and had a meeting a few days before Lunaria was killed. Also, on the day when Lunaria was suspected to have been killed, a suspect who was suspicious in his behaviour was witnessed. For that matter, they've disappeared since that day. What Szilard explained was the same as I found, but I wanted to deny it. It's impossible for them to do that. They came here for the dragon world. They came for all-world peace. But I didn't have anything to deny the evidence lined up there. Isn't it proof that Kirisis Calicis was on good terms with Lunaria? No, it's the opposite. It can be said that she approached Lunaria because she was trying to cause this incident. What's wrong, Laplace? You look pale. Szilard's words trembled my wings. If they really committed the crime, it wouldn't be strange for me to be a suspect as well. I devised a plan to kill Lunaria, and for that reason I invited them into this dragon world. And I didn't have any words to deny it. Even if I didn't mean it, there was no substitute for me who invited them. Szilard said to me, who was terrified, "Laplace, I'm not suspicious of you." It was a reassuring word. Looking around, the 5 other dragon generals were looking at me with the same eyes as Szilard. It was a reassuring line of sight. You are more gracious to Lunaria than anyone else. Everyone acknowledges your loyalty to the dragon god. You couldn't have caused such a tragedy. Thank you. At the same time I was relieved, I felt proud. I'm being treated by this prideful dragon general as an unquestionable companion. Maybe they tried to make use of you. The criminal knew what you were doing and approached you. They probably were trying to aim for Lunaria's life and put the blame on you. But why Lunaria, Sama? Anyway, I wanted to know the purpose. Who killed Lunaria, and for what reason? Were you trying to kill the child? I wanted to know the reason. It's just a guess, but people in other worlds probably don't like the dragon world having more power. In particular, the dragon god married the human god's daughter and had children. I think that's why. What's dangerous about that? Don't you know? The human race is the weakest, but the speed of cultural development is unrivaled by other worlds. And although the speed of cultural development is slow, we're the strongest race in the individual. The connection between the human race and the dragon tribe is, if you become stronger, you can overwhelm other worlds and take the initiative. That's stupid. Did they think that Dragon God was joining hands with Human God with the intention of taking over the worlds? It wouldn't be strange for anyone to think that way. Szilard's reasoning didn't convince me. At least, all the gods I've seen were thinking only about their worlds. There was a bit of insecurity that we could get attacked by another world, but no one really wanted to fight. If we even tried to do this, the wise gods would of course realize it. That's why I was convinced that it's better if the worlds are equal. However, once a clear gap is created, the current situation would not continue. The upper one may look down on the lower one and treat him like a slave. If you've taken the lead in avoiding that, it's not unreasonable. But if that's the purpose, it's a bad move. There's no point in killing Lunaria herself. That's right, then the murder of Lunaria might have been secondary, and the real purpose might have been to kill the child. What do you mean? The son will be the king of both the dragon race and the human race. No, he could be the next generation's god. The title of the son of Dragon God makes the dragon tribe obey allegiance. The title of Lunaria's son makes allegiance from the human race inevitable. There's a possibility that the dragon race and the human race would join hands under the sun. Therefore, the assailant tried to kill the sun. However, Lunaria showed more resistance than expected, and he didn't manage to kill the sun. Of course, I would have considered killing Lunaria from the beginning. Even if you kill the child, it doesn't make sense if she gives birth to a second child. I don't care about the reason. It was the dragon god who blocked the words of me and Sillard. After looking through the list, he looked at Sillard's with his sitting eyes and said, "Sillard, what is this?" "That's the list of suspects. What I ordered you. The criminal." "Oh." Sillard realized his blunder. It's not the suspect that the dragon god told me to look for. It's the criminal. In other words, we were not able to complete our mission. Normally, Dragon God wouldn't point that out, but Dragon God at that time is different. He has a face that basically says if we don't bring the culprit now, we'll have ourselves torn to pieces. "I beg your pardon." In an instant, Sillard gave the most respectful bow. With a look that he's willing to die, he's advised the Dragon God. "From now on, I will travel through each world, find the criminal, and drag him here." "Wait." Dragon God sent a keen eye to Sillard, who tried to scream and jump out of the conference room. Sillard was trembling. The anger continues. No one can take his gaze head on and stay calm, even if it's one of the 5 dragon generals. "Sillard, is the criminal among the list?" "I think it's highly possible." The dragon god seemed to be thinking about something. Is it another reason why the criminal killed Lunaria? Or is it a way to find the criminal? However, nothing came out of his mouth. For a while, he looks at the list with a look that seems to want to burn everything, as if he wouldn't forget the names on the list even if he dies. At last, Dragon God raised his face as if he realized something. "Did you realize something?" We saw the face of Dragon God with that in mind. However, Dragon God looks back sharply at something behind us. "Do you have any business?" The Dragon God said that, and I finally realized. A lone man was standing there all along. His presence was so thin that we were not sure whether he's there or not. Only the place around him, somehow it looked a little distorted, as if he always stood in our blind spot. "Is it strange that I came?" He had a slightly different atmosphere than when I met him before. It seems he's angry somewhere in his heart. Well, that's nothing surprising. "Do you think that I'll just stay silent if my daughter gets killed?" Yes, he's the human god. He's the father of Lunaria. "You're probably planning on taking revenge, aren't you? Please, I want you to let me in. Us human race indeed does not have the strength, but we have the wisdom. I beg on you, let me help you with this. Can I?" "Your help would be useful." "Can you let me see the list?" The human god says so, and without waiting for a response, he picks up the list on the table and looks at it. He reaches his chin and makes a pose that says he's thinking. "As expected, these 4 worlds, huh? Do you have something in mind?" Without thinking, I said so. Then the human god turned on me, as if he just listened to me. "Yes, I think you're aware that these 4 worlds are in a terrible state with each other, yes?" "Yes. But these 4 worlds have been quiet for a while." "But that's..." "Yes, it's because of your courage to become the bridge among the worlds. We'd made a path among these worlds." After getting complimented, of course, I would be proud of myself. However, the continuation of his word is something that was the opposite. "But because of that, the studies regarding monsters and metastasis has become known." It was something I didn't have any clue about. Regarding monsters and metastasis, the subject is being studied all over the world. That itself is something I'm aware of. About demon races' research content, I'd gone to inspect it myself a few times. However, in fact, at that time, I was ignorant of how far the research of the dragon world had progressed. I only heard reports that there were research results once in a while, and I didn't know how many of the results were actually achieved. No, if you think about it now, the report may have been hidden to some extent. Well, let's talk about that a little later. I didn't know about that at this time. I bet that they're surprised. The dragon race, whom all this time had nothing but power, having this length of technology. They thought that perhaps It's actually us who's been the mastermind of the transfers of magical beasts. What the hell is that? No one answers my question, but Dragon God and 5 dragon generals all have terrifying expressions. It's a face that has realised something horrible. Why did Lunaria get killed? Probably Lunaria-sama accidentally knew what they knew, and they too, at the same time, know that fact. It was known that she knew the secret. After that, while considering their future fate, it's not weird to kill her now. I still don't know what they're talking about. However, it's not weird for Dragon God and the 5 dragon generals to be the culprits of the monsters and metastasis. I just couldn't be convinced with just that. I see. They stole our research and concluded from the progress that it's the cause of monsters and metastasis, and also killed Lunaria-sama and tried to get their hands on my son. The Dragon God quietly said so. However, his voice makes the room's temperature seem like it dropped. They were terrifying words. It's as if the Dragon God's anger leaked out of his mouth. "This is rubbish!" At last, Dragon God jumps from his chair and says that. Then he's off to the exit, angry. "Where to?" "Going from the top." No one could understand the meaning of the words. Both me and Szilard, Dora, Maxwell and Chaos. No one understands.